Matteo Rivera didn't run. He couldn't run. He couldn't even see the sidewalk under his feet. The courtroom held its breath as the blind street musician stood motionless at the defense table, fingers trembling on the handle of his white cane. He tilted his head toward the bench, not because he saw the judge, but because he felt the room shift around him. "Your Honor, people think I tried to get away, but how can I run," he said softly, "when I can't even see the world I'm accused of escaping from?" His voice didn't crack. It didn't plead. It carried the weight of a man whose only crime was surviving the only way he knew how, through music. In the gallery, Officer Trent Mallory shifted in his seat. Matteo didn't need eyes to notice it. He followed the sound instantly, turning toward it with uncanny precision. Before we go any further, you're watching Case Closed, where real stories reveal the truth behind the headlines. Hit subscribe right now because what happens next in this courtroom will challenge everything you thought you knew about justice. Now, let's dive back into the case.
Judge Frank Caprio raised one hand. "Officer, you'll have your turn. Mr. Rivera, continue." "I was told I was blocking a storefront, but I couldn't see what I was blocking. I asked him to point me somewhere else, but he just kept shouting the same order." Anita Delgado, his attorney, touched the table lightly near Matteo's hand, a signal that she was present. "Your Honor, my client has been totally blind since age 12. He navigates by sound, by memory, by the kindness of others. What happened that morning wasn't defiance, it was confusion." 10 hours, 11 minutes, and 47 seconds. A.M. Court microphone picks up a soft tap of a cane against the floor. The courtroom held perhaps 60 people. Some came for their own cases. Others came because Judge Caprio's hearings had become something more than legal proceedings. They had become moments when the city watched itself try to be better. People watching today often share where they're from before the story turns emotional. It's become part of these Caprio moments. From coffee shops to office break rooms, strangers tune in to see justice that tries to see the whole person. Ms. Reyes stood at her desk, reading glasses perched on her nose. Case number 2025 NV 5124. The State versus Matteo Rivera. Charges: disturbing commercial activity, unauthorized amplified sound, refusal to relocate when ordered, citation destruction. Matteo flinched at destruction. His fingers tightened slightly. "Your Honor, regarding that last charge," Anita Delgado's voice came quick. "My client couldn't read the citation. He crumpled it accidentally while trying to determine what it was by touch. That's not willful destruction." "Noted. We'll address each charge in turn." Judge Caprio's tone stayed even, neutral. "Mr. Rivera, can you tell me what happened on the morning of October 3rd? "I play guitar every morning. Corner of Waybeside and Dorrance, near the bus stop. I've been playing there for 3 years. "Why that location?" "Good acoustics. The buildings bounce sound back, so I know where I am. I hear the bus brakes, the crosswalk signal, the footsteps. It's my map." His voice carried a musician's precision, aware of cadence, of when to pause. "That morning, I set up at 7:30. Same as always. Played for maybe an hour. Then someone started yelling." "The officer?" "Yes, but I didn't know he was an officer at first. Just a loud voice telling me to move." "What did you do?" "I asked him where he wanted me to go. I need someone to guide me or give me directions I can follow, like 10 steps toward the traffic sounds or turn left at the newspaper box. But he just repeated, 'Move away from the storefront,' louder." Signed complaint filed the 3rd of October, 2024, 11:23 a.m. Business, Pike's Corner Market. Complainant, Harold Pike. Owner. Statement: street musician positioned directly outside entrance. Amplified guitar noise interfering with customer flow. Requested removal by officer. Musician refused to comply. Signature, H. Pike. Judge Caprio studied the complaint form. "Mr.
Rivera, the business owner, states you were directly outside his entrance. I didn't know that. I followed the sound of the building wall. I keep my back to it so I don't block the sidewalk flow. I don't know where doors are unless someone tells me. Did anyone tell you before that morning?"
Silence. Then quietly, "No." Anita Delgado leaned forward slightly. "Your Honor, my client receives auditory cues from his environment. He cannot assess visual boundaries like storefronts or doorways. He believed he was positioned safely out of pedestrian traffic. Officer Mallory, you're present." The officer stood from the third row, younger than most expected, maybe 28, with the careful posture of someone who'd been thinking about this case for weeks. "Yes, Your Honor." "Tell me what you observed." Officer Mallory approached the witness area. "I responded to a noise complaint at 8:47 a.m. When I arrived, the defendant was seated on a folding chair with a guitar and a small amplifier positioned approximately 3 feet from the entrance to Pike's Corner Market. Was he blocking the door?" "Not directly blocking it, no, but customers had to walk around him to enter. Did that seem intentional to you?" The officer hesitated. "At the time, yes. I thought he was deliberately positioning himself to maximize foot traffic exposure." "What happened when you asked him to move?" "I told him he needed to relocate at least 20 feet from the storefront. He didn't move. He asked me something I couldn't quite hear over the traffic noise." "What was it?" "I asked him to repeat it, and he said..." Officer Mallory checked his notes. "Point me toward where you want me to go." "What did you understand that to mean?" "I thought he was being difficult, like he wanted me to do his job for him." "What did you do next?" "I repeated the order louder, told him if he didn't comply, I'd have to issue a citation." "Did you physically point?" The officer's expression changed. "Yes." "I pointed toward a spot further down the block." "Did he see you point?" The courtroom understood the question before the officer answered it. "No. No, Your Honor. I didn't realize he couldn't see at all." 10 hours, 18 minutes, and 33 seconds. A.M. Body cam audio begins. The clerk activated the recording. The audio quality was sharp, almost too clear. "Sir, I need you to move away from this storefront." Guitar music continues. "Sir, sir, I'm speaking to you." Music stops. "Point me toward where you want me to go." "I just told you, 20 feet that direction." Pause. "I can't see that direction. Can you guide me?" "You need to move now." Rustling sounds. "I'm trying to understand where." "This is your final warning." The recording continued. The sound of paper, Matteo's hands fumbling with it, the crumpling sound. Then the officer's sharp tone declaring it destruction of citation. The audio ended. Officer Mallory spoke again. "Your Honor, I didn't know..."
He was blind until after I'd already written the citation. He wasn't wearing sunglasses. His eyes were open. He moved his head like he was looking at me.
"Did you ask if he needed assistance?"
"No, sir."
"Why not?"
"I assumed non-compliance, not disability."
Judge Caprio made a note. His pen moved slowly, deliberately. "Is the complainant present?" "Mr. Harold Pike." A man in his 50s stood from the front row. He wore business casual, carried a leather portfolio, looked like someone used to being heard. "Here, Your Honor." "Mr. Pike, you filed the complaint. Can you explain what impact Mr. Rivera's music had on your business?" "It drove customers away. People don't want to navigate around street performers when they're trying to shop. The noise made it hard for my employees to hear customers at the counter. I asked the city to enforce the noise ordinance." "Did you speak to Mr. Rivera directly?" "No, I called the police." "Why not speak to him first?" Pike's jaw tightened. "I shouldn't have to negotiate with someone breaking the law." Matteo's voice cut through, soft but clear. "Sir, did you see me? Because I can't see you." The question hung in the air. Pike stared at him. "What does that have to do with anything?" "You say I drove customers away, but I don't know what your customers look like. I don't know if they walked around me or past me or through me. I only know sound." "Did you see that I was blind?" Call log, Providence PD, the 3rd of October, 2024. 10 hours, 1 minute, and 18 seconds. A.M. Pike, Harold, noise complaint. Way, Bossett, Dorrance. 10 hours, 3 minutes, and 42 seconds. AM, Pike, Herald, follow-up request, immediate response. 10 hours, 4 minutes, 56 seconds. AM, Pike, Herald, demands officer arrival time. 3 calls in 4 minutes. The log told its own story. Judge Caprio studied Pike carefully. Mr. Pike, did you know Mr. Rivera was blind when you filed your complaint? I saw him there, but I didn't. You saw him, but you didn't see him. The sentence landed like a gavel. Pike fell silent. Your Honor, may I call a witness? Anita Delgado stood. Proceed. I'd like to call Mrs. Elena Vasquez. She was present that morning. An elderly woman stood from the middle row. She moved slowly, using the bench backs for support. The bailiff helped her to the witness area. Mrs. Vasquez, can you tell us what you observed on October 3rd? I see Matteo every morning. I take the bus to my daughter's house, and I always stop to listen. He plays beautifully. Her voice wavered slightly with age, but carried conviction. That morning, I put $5 in his case, same as always. Then that man, she gestured toward Pike, came out of his store and stood there with his arms crossed, making phone calls. Matteo kept playing. He didn't know he was being watched.
Did you hear the officer give orders? Yes, and I heard Matteo ask for help. He asked the officer to guide him, but the officer just kept yelling. Did Mr. Rivera seem defiant to you? Defiant? No, honey, he seemed lost. Mrs. Vasquez turned slightly toward Pike. I shop at your store sometimes, Mr. Pike. I heard you tell your cashier once that the blind man's music was bad for business. The courtroom stilled. Pike's face darkened. That was a private conversation. It was loud enough for customers to hear. 5 seconds. 7. 10. 12. That was the silence when truth landed. Not dramatic, not explosive, just the quiet weight of something undeniable settling into the room. Viewers of these moments always say this is where everything changes. The legal charges remain the same, but the story beneath them shifts. Suddenly, people watching from their phones or computers see not just a defendant and a complainant, but human beings, making assumptions, missing cues, failing to see each other clearly. Judge Caprio's voice came softer than before. Mrs. Vasquez, do you know why Mr. Rivera performs? He told me once he can't get regular work. People won't hire him because of his eyes. The music pays for his medication, diabetes medicine, I think, and his rent. Thank you, Mrs. Vasquez. You may step down. The judge turned back to Matteo. Mr. Rivera, how long have you been playing music? Since I was 14. Started 2 years after I lost my sight. My grandfather taught me guitar. Said music doesn't care if you can see, it only cares if you can feel. What do you play? Folk songs, some jazz, whatever feels right for the morning. And you do this every day. 6 days a week. Sundays I rest. Judge Caprio leaned back slightly. Mr. Rivera, I need to understand something. When Officer Mallory ordered you to move, why didn't you immediately comply? Because I didn't understand where to go. Moving without direction could mean stepping into traffic. It could mean walking into a wall. It could mean losing my orientation completely and not knowing how to get home. His voice stayed steady, but his hands moved as he spoke, gesturing slightly, shaping the words. Sound is my map, my dignity, my work. If I move without understanding the space around me, I lose all three. Have you ever had issues at that location before? Anita Delgado interjected. Your Honor, there was a prior warning issued 8 months ago. Different officer, same location, similar complaint from Mr. Pike. Do we have documentation? Yes, but it was verbal only. No signed acknowledgement because Mr. Rivera couldn't read it and the officer didn't provide it in an accessible format. Prior warning note. Officer memo. The 15th of February, 2024. Verbal warning issued to street musician at Huevos, Dorrance. Subject advised to maintain 15-foot clearance from commercial entrances. Subject stated he understood, but did not sign warning form. Officer noted subject may have
vision impairment but did not confirm. Judge Caprio read the memo twice. So, Mr. Rivera was warned, but never given information in a format he could actually understand. Correct, Your Honor. The judge set the paper down. Mr. Rivera, your music, is it amplified? Yes, sir. Small practice amp, battery-powered. I keep the volume low, just enough to be heard over traffic. How loud? I don't know in numbers. I adjusted by the echo. If it bounces back too sharp, I turn it down. Mrs. Vasquez, was the music loud that morning? The elderly woman, still seated nearby, answered without standing. Not at all. I could hear the buses louder than his guitar. Text message from witness David Park, logged the 3rd of October, 2024, 9:34 a.m. Saw the whole thing at Way Bossett. Blind guitarist getting harassed by cop. Music was barely louder than the cars. Guy just wanted to play in peace. Judge Caprio looked at Officer Mallory. Officer, do you believe Mr. Rivera was intentionally defying you after learning about his blindness and reviewing my body cam? No, sir. I think I misread the situation completely. Do you think you could have handled it differently? Yes. I should have asked if he needed assistance. I should have physically guided him to an acceptable location instead of just pointing and expecting compliance. The admission came with visible discomfort, but it came. Mr. Pike, Judge Caprio's tone changed. Not harsh, but firm. Did you ever consider speaking to Mr. Rivera directly about your concerns? No. I thought the proper channel was calling the police. And when you called the police 3 times in 4 minutes, what were you hoping would happen? Pike hesitated. I wanted him removed. Removed. Not relocated, not accommodated. Removed. I run a business. I need customers to have clear access. And Mr. Rivera needs to earn a living. Are those mutually exclusive needs? Silence. Judge Caprio continued, his voice measured. Mr. Pike, I'm going to ask you something important. Have you ever actually listened to Mr. Rivera play? No. Have you ever spoken to anyone who has? No. Have you ever asked yourself whether a blind musician playing folk songs might actually draw people to your block rather than drive them away? Pike had no answer. The judge turned back to Matteo. Mr. Rivera, your music is not a violation. It is expression. It is labor. It is art. Matteo's head lifted slightly. But I need you to understand something too. The city has rules about amplified sound in commercial space. And those rules exist for reasons. The question isn't whether you broke them. The question is whether breaking them was willful or circumstantial. I never wanted to break any rules. I just wanted to play. I know. That's why I'm going to do something different here. Mini log. City Attorney Opinion. The 20th of November, 2024. Street performers operating in public spaces are protected under First Amendment expression rights.
Noise ordinances must accommodate disabilities under ADA. Reasonable accommodation includes providing accessible location guidance and measuring decibel levels objectively, not subjectively. Recommendation: dismiss unauthorized amplification charge. Reduce relocation refusal charge based on communication barrier. Judge Caprio looked at the court clerk. Ms. Reyes, what was the base fine proposed? $275, Your Honor. Mr. Rivera, can you afford that? No, sir. That's 3 weeks of donations. Then we're not imposing it. Here's what I'm ordering instead. He leaned forward, speaking directly to where Matteo stood. First, I'm dismissing the disturbing commercial activity charge entirely. You weren't disturbing anything. You were participating in the life of this city. Second, I'm dismissing the unauthorized amplified sound charge because Mrs. Vasquez and Mr. Park both confirm your volume was reasonable. Third, the citation destruction charge. Dismissed. You couldn't read it. Anita Delgado exhaled. But the refusal to relocate, that one I'm keeping, but with context.
You didn't refuse. You asked for help and didn't receive it. So, instead of a fine, I'm offering you a restorative path. What does that mean? You'll perform a free community concert at Riverside Senior Center. You'll write a letter to Mr. Pike explaining how blindness affects your navigation. You'll participate in one disability awareness session with the Providence Police Department, and you'll write a reflection letter about artistic rights versus public space, something I can share with the City Council. I can do all of that. Good, because here's what else is going to happen. Judge Caprio's tone shifted, taking on the weight of a decision he'd been building toward. I'm ordering the city to develop street performer accessibility guidelines within 90 days. Every performer with a documented disability gets the right to request location assistance from officers. No more pointing and expecting compliance. No more assuming defiance when someone asks for help. Officer Mallory stood. Your Honor, may I volunteer for the training committee? Yes, in fact, I'm requiring it. You seem like someone who learns from mistakes. I do, sir. I want to do better. Then do better. Not just for Mr. Rivera, but for every person you encounter who navigates the world differently than you do. The officer nodded and sat back down. Judge Caprio turned to Pike. Mr. Pike, I'm not fining you. I'm not charging you with anything, but I am suggesting you attend Mr. Rivera's community concert, not as punishment, as education. I don't see how you don't see. That's the problem. Mr. Rivera can't see either, but he still knows how to listen. The words landed without cruelty, just truth. Matteo completed his community concert 3 weeks later. The Riverside Senior Center filled with 68 people, residents, staff, family members, curious neighbors. He played for 90 minutes. Folk songs, jazz standards, one original piece he'd written about navigation by sound. Harold Pike attended. He sat in the back row, arms crossed initially, expression guarded, but halfway through the second song, a rendition of What a Wonderful World, his arms uncrossed. By the final song, he was leaning forward. Donation ledger from Riverside Senior Center event, the 22nd of November, 2024. Total raised, $1,437. Distribution, $718.50 to Matteo Rivera. Performer fee, $718.50 to RE Association for the Blind Access Programs. Attendee count, 68. Comment cards, 52 submitted, 51 positive, 1 requesting encore performance. After the concert, Pike approached Matteo in the hallway. Matteo heard the footsteps, heavier than most, deliberate. Mr. Rivera? Mr. Pike, how did you... I recognize your walk. You came in late, sat in the back. Pike exhaled. I owe you an apology. Okay, I was wrong about the music, about calling the police, about all of it. Matteo nodded once. I didn't know you couldn't see. I thought you were just being difficult. Most people think that. That's not an excuse. No, but it's honest. Pike shifted his weight. Would you consider playing outside my store again if I helped you find a spot that works for both of us? Matteo's expression changed surprise, cautious hope. You mean that? I do. I think you were right. Your music doesn't drive people away. It gives them a reason to slow down. I'd like that. They shook hands. Pike guided Matteo's hand to his, a gesture the musician appreciated. The follow-up hearing happened on a gray December morning. Fewer people in the gallery this time, but Officer Mallory was there, and so was Mrs. Vasquez. Miss Reyes called the case. 2025 NV 5124 status hearing for restorative compliance. Judge Caprio smiled. Mr. Rivera, how was the concert? Good. Really good. People cried. Some of them came up afterward and said they'd never heard live music before. The disability awareness session? Finished it. Officer Mallory was there. The judge looked at the officer. How did it go? Eye-opening, Your Honor. I learned how to do verbal orientation,
how to describe locations using clock positions, how to offer an arm instead of pushing, how to ask what someone needs instead of assuming. Good. That training is now mandatory for all officers starting January. Officer Mallory nodded. The apology letter to Mr. Pike? Matteo's expression softened. Sent. He wrote back. Actually invited me to perform outside his store again, with his support this time. And the reflection letter, submitted? Judge Caprio pulled out a single sheet of paper, read a section aloud. People think music is extra. Something nice, but not necessary. But for me, music is labor. It's the only labor that doesn't require sight. When someone tries to silence my music because they think it's noise, they're not just silencing sound. They're silencing my ability to exist in public space with dignity. He set the paper down. Mr. Rivera, that's the clearest articulation of artistic rights I've read in years. Thank you. All fines remitted, all charges dismissed. Your record is clean. Matteo's hands relaxed against the table. Officer Mallory, continue the training work. Mr. Pike? Pike stood from the gallery. Thank you for learning to listen. Thank you for teaching.
Me, Your Honor. Timeline. Street Performer Accessibility Guidelines Adoption. Day 0. The 20th of November 2024. Judge Caprio orders guideline development. Day 15. Providence Arts Council forms committee including performers with disabilities. Day 45. Draft guidelines reviewed includes request for assistance protocol, decibel measurement standards, ADA accommodation requirements. Day 75. Public comment period, 87% approval rating. Day 90. Guidelines adopted citywide, wallet cards distributed to all officers. Day 120. 3 other Rhode Island cities adopt similar policies. People who watch cases like this always say the courtroom becomes a classroom, not because judges lecture, but because they create space for people to see each other clearly, sometimes for the first time. Stories like Matteo's travel beyond the courtroom, into living rooms and workplaces, sparking conversations about who gets to occupy public space. Whose sound is music versus whose sound is noise? Who deserves dignity versus who deserves removal? 6 months after the hearing, Matteo still played at the corner of Webb Bossett and Dorrance, but now there was a small plaque on the wall behind him installed by Pike's Corner Market. Community performance space, all welcome. Pike had commissioned it himself. Matteo ran his fingers across the raised letters once, memorizing them by touch. Then he picked up his guitar and played. The courtroom had ended. The music continued. Judge Caprio saw him again in April during a lunch break. The judge walked past the corner, stopped, listened for 30 seconds. Matteo sensed the presence, the stillness of someone not passing through but staying. Judge Caprio, how did you know? You breathe slowly. Most people rush. The judge smiled. Keep playing, Mr. Rivera. This city needs your music. Matteo lifted his chin slightly, as though he were looking the judge in the eyes, though the truth was he never could. Thank you for hearing it, he said softly. I always knew my truth. I just needed the world to hear it too. He tapped the floor with his cane, found his orientation by sound alone, and then, quietly, began to play a new melody. Something gentle, something full of gratitude, a song that felt like hope finally exhaling. As Judge Caprio walked out of the courthouse, Matteo's music followed him, floating into the hallway, out onto the steps, weaving itself through the city streets. Each note softened the hard edges of the world, turning the cold architecture into something human, something listening. Some people don't see with their eyes at all. They see with their ears, with their hands, with their ability to feel the world rather than observe it.
Matteo Rivera couldn't see the city, but the city could finally hear him. He had thought he was just noise, but that day, in that courtroom, he realized something far greater. "You heard me," Matteo whispered. "You really heard me." They were the last words he spoke before the case was dismissed. No bitterness, no anger, just the quiet relief of a man who was finally understood. Judge Caprio turned back, not as a judge, but as a man whose life's work had been rooted in compassion, and said, "Mr. Rivera, you were never noise. You were always music. The rest of us just needed better ears." As the doors closed, it felt like the ending of a chapter and the beginning of Caprio's legacy echoing onward. Because even in retirement, the spirit of his courtroom remains. A place where justice isn't just delivered, it's felt. A place where humanity comes first. A place where every voice matters, especially the ones the world overlooks. And here at Case Closed, we keep that legacy alive. Before we go, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Your stories make this community stronger. And don't forget, subscribe to Case Closed so you never miss another real story that proves compassion is justice, and justice can change a life.